to be here.
Fantastic. So this is, South Africa has been supporting this program for years.
Yes.
How much of a role has South Africa played in feeding the hungry?
Well, South Africa plays a significant role, not just in the contributions that they make financially. In fact, they've given us about 56 million US dollars since 2002, but also because they have such a strong voice. They sit on our executive board globally, and they're a significant spokesperson, not just for people here in South Africa, but for the entire continent.
Yeah. I mean, let's have a look at the food security problem, especially within Africa. How bad is it?
Well, in the world, there are 875 million undernourished people in the entire world. 60% of those are in sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa. And the challenge is, as a percentage of population, you have the largest number of hungry people in sub-Saharan Africa than you do any place else in the world.
Wow. So, I mean, that is bad. And I mean, you've actually dubbed it a silent emergency.
In the sub-Saharan region, in the Southern Africa region, we call it a silent emergency. Because in places like DRC and the Sahel and Somalia, you see those hungry people regularly. You see the challenges on the news regularly. The challenge here in this area, in countries like Lesotho and like Namibia, where you have so many people who are impacted on a regular basis by drought, by floods, by conflict, and they have no resilience, and we call those the vulnerable, hungry, poor, that every time there's another shock, a child goes hungry.
Yeah. Now, you know, there's with doing good, it always sometimes comes with criticism, and there have been some allegations that some of the food distributed to the various countries is genetically modified, and it's not necessarily healthy. You know, what are your views on this?
Well, there's a lot of controversy around the issue of genetically modified foods. The reality of it is we let the countries that we serve determine whether or not they're going to accept genetically modified food, as well as the donors determine whether they want to buy it. The science tells us that genetically modified food is healthy, and so we aren't involved in that debate. What we're involved in is ensuring that all the food that we provide is safe. There's nothing unsafe about genetically modified food, and as a result, and because of that, we distribute it to those children who otherwise might go hungry.
Yeah.
A number of our donors in a number of our countries provide food that is genetically modified, but that food has, as I said, the science has not shown us that it has any problems at all.
And every country is aware, going into the country, the food that's being distributed.
The country is aware of whether or not they have regulations in their country regarding genetically modified food.
Okay.
For example, here in South Africa, there are no regulations regarding genetically modified food. Sure. In the United States, where I'm from, there's no regulations regarding genetically modified food. And you and I look pretty healthy.
Okay. All right. Well, now that you put it that way. The World Food Programme, it's big. I mean, it gets support from many different countries. How much money does it take and support to keep an engine like this going?
The reality of it is, last year we raised and spent about $4 billion. Wow. A little under that, about $3.8 billion. Next year, because of Syria, we're estimating our needs budget at $6.7 billion. We've never, unfortunately, raised as much as we need, which means that we're always, I told someone recently, I said, I feel like a mother on a budget. What comes in is how we spend it. We ensure that we don't prioritize one child over another. At times, we find ourselves in situations where there are communities that we'd like to reach for a longer period of time, but we can't because we don't receive enough money. So much of my time is spent with these kinds of opportunities where I reach out to the world and say, we have the tools that are available to end hunger. What we need is the public will.
Yeah. I mean, you were telling me you just got back from, 10 days ago you were in Damascus.
Right.
And that was just heartbreaking.
It's absolutely heartbreaking. In Damascus right now, we're feeding 3 million people per month inside Damascus. Yeah. And we're feeding another 1.3 million people out in the 5 countries outside Damascus who have for people who've sought refuge in those countries. It's costing us $27 million per week. Just to feed the people who are so challenged and the victims of the lack of a political solution.
My gosh.
In Syria and around Syria.
And next stop is the DRC. You're going into Goma.
The next stop, I'm going into Goma. The challenge that we have in Goma is that the conflict has begun again, and having access to those children and those families who otherwise will go hungry if we don't get to them. And so what we say to everyone, whether it's Syria or whether it's Goma, is allow humanitarians the access that are required so that the victims of conflict don't go hungry.
Incredible job you're doing, Ertharin Cousin. Thank you so much for stopping by, talking to us and highlighting the problems when it comes to food security in the world and particularly within Africa. Thank you for being our guest and have a safe trip.
Thank you for this opportunity.
It's a pleasure. Right, let's take a break here on Morning Live. When we return,